Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer. And all week we are talking creative industries. So we're kicking off this week's topic with Emily Schromm, who is a health and wellness entrepreneur. How are you, Emily?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on today.
Yes, thanks for joining us. And I also have with me Bonnie Chacon. That is how it's
Correct.
said. Okay, perfect. And she is a global supply chain and sourcing manager for CAP Logistics. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes. So I kind of want to get a background here. So health and wellness entrepreneur, that's a pretty broad term, right?
I know. I narrowed it down the last couple months because I just got sick of saying my title because I do quite a bit of things, but they're all in the health and wellness space.
Okay.
So starting off as a personal trainer almost 7 years ago, coach health and wellness, kind of just somebody that people came to and trained in person, and then I turned that to an online business about 6 years ago. So starting with just doing nutrition programs online, and then turned that into a backpack company, which is a backpack that turns into a weight training bag. So trying to solve the problem of I travel all the time, I needed a way to work out on the go, but also for my clients that didn't have access to a gym or they only had dumbbells, how do they get stronger? And you have to increase your weight mass and you have to push yourself and work out. So instead of buying more dumbbells, they just add more water because it uses water as weight.
Okay.
So that was my second company, and then turning it into what is now the tea company, so Element Tea.
Yeah.
And this has been wonderful, and how Bonnie and I know each other, and she's just been incredible with this whole process. I love nutrition, so my actual title is a nutritional therapy practitioner, which is a fancy title to say that I try to figure out supplements and bio-individuality. So if the person's struggling with stress or gut issues or poor sleep or bad energy, what are they missing in their diet?
What if I have all of those issues?
Well, we should talk, girl. We should talk. Because it's the common things I saw over and over and over again with my clients.
Yeah.
And I love figuring out what the body needs, and I've always felt like I'm my own guinea pig, and I want to give people the tools that they can help figure out what they need, because we're all so different. And so instead of figuring out supplements, which are great, supplements definitely have their place, but sometimes just swallowing a pill, not knowing what it is, I don't think that's empowering at all. I don't think it's also sustainable. So if someone's really trying to take control of their health, I want to explain the whys behind it. And so that's how I got into herbalism and figuring out different plants and different medicinal tools to help people understand their body, but also to experience the benefits that plants can have when it comes to healing certain ailments like energy and gut issues. And so that's how the tea company came about.
Awesome. So I have to ask, are you pro Eastern medicine then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to say that Western medicine is terrible, right? So like I think I'm a mix of both, but because there is a place up for it, but preventative medicine is where medicine is going. And when people start to understand that their ailments aren't normal, like their energy issues, their bloating, their cramping, their 2 to 3 p.m. crash and burn and exhaustion, and waking up not feeling excited about waking up, those aren't normal. And so I think understanding that, you really have to look at the whole picture. It's not just the food on your plate, and it's not just the workouts that you do. And so Eastern medicine does a really good job of understanding the whole body, the mind, body, soul connection. So yes, I'm a big fan of Ayurvedic practices and anything that has to do with fixing, or not fixing, but supporting the whole body instead of just parts.
Yeah. What a great concept. And I'm sorry, can you explain Ayurvedic process?
So it's just an ancient practice.
Okay.
So, and I love it because it just helps. It's been around for thousands, if not millions of years, primarily in India, but it really just helps with helping people understand what their body needs. So there's doshas that you can get into. It's just a really, I think Chinese medicine is another alternative of Ayurvedic, but it's just an ancient medicinal practice of Eastern medicine.
Okay. I appreciate that explanation. Clearly, I'm a person who's not.
No, I could do better. No. I'm not an Ayurvedic expert by any means, but yes, I do love dabbling in all of the above, because then you can figure out what works best for the individual.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit before the show started about your background and why you got into fitness in the first place, right? Because it's not everybody's cup of tea, so to speak.
I've always been an athlete, so I've always worked out as far as I played soccer growing up, and I loved feeling fit, and I loved being able to beat the boys. That was always my motivation. But when I got into college and just really didn't have direction as a coach or for a coach to kind of teach me what to do, I just felt so lost. And so I really just went down this path, didn't know what I was doing. Long story short, this can get really long, but I was on a reality TV show, and that was kind of the moment of self-realization where I had to watch myself 3 months after I had filmed, and going through that process and seeing myself on TV and not liking what I saw, but also realizing that it wasn't just this visual of what I didn't like. It was this internal person. Like, I just didn't appreciate who I saw in the mirror. And I was so sick of having that same conversation with myself of I don't like what I see and I wish I was something different, or I wish I was XYZ, that I just said I have to change it. And so I dove full into programming and nutrition in a way that I had to figure out how to empower myself from the inside out. And for the first time ever leaving the gym, I felt so strong and so capable. And I knew that was the moment that I had to spread that gospel of whatever it was. It wasn't fitness. It wasn't clean eating. It was just, you can empower yourself when you have the right tools to do it.
That's a beautiful story. I love that.
That is a really beautiful story. And I feel like you're in the same boat as a lot of women, right? I have to admit that sometimes I avoid watching YouTube because I see myself, right? And there are some days that I am bloated or I am tired and I can see it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, watching yourself is so hard because we're our worst critic. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I've learned is no matter what my training is or my supplements that I give somebody or the program I give somebody, that inner transformation happens in our own head. And so I think that's the battle we all face. We can always compare ourselves. We can always be in this, I could be better, I could look better, I could have shampooed my hair today. But I know, like, at the end of the day, if I'm not happy with who I am, no progression, no workout plan, no body changes will make me happy with who I am. So having to just be content with who I am in this moment, regardless of where I want to go, it's always the battle, but it's the battle that you have to win, or you're always going to be not liking what you see in the mirror.
yeah, and being true to yourself, right, is one of those, that's a tough concept. I think a lot of people have a hard time grasping. Definitely comes with age. It's been my experience for sure. I am, over the years, I've definitely been like, you know what, I care less about this and more about this. I personal question for you. I have a few friends that were in the fitness world, the bikini competition.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's that is a tough competitive environment. Any thoughts on that? Because I feel like self-image is huge in that industry.
Yes. The dedication it takes to compete at that level. So this is like bodybuilding or figure or IFBB is what, they kind of typically see it, but you just are visualizing, if you're listening, like very tan fit people on stage. And for a while, when I first started training, I'm so competitive. Since I've always been an athlete, I felt like I needed to train for a purpose, and I didn't know what that purpose was. And so I thought about doing that for a while, then train the way they do, and oh my God, I mean, it's incredible, the dedication that they have. But at the end of the day, you're still pitting your body against somebody else's body, and that's a scary place. I think for sometimes that's okay and never to talk bad about it, but you mentally have to go through it's a big gut check of like, at the end of the day, I'm just seeing my worth next to somebody else's body, and your worth is not your body. So I have a hard time connecting to that, although I know it takes so much dedication. I always feel like it's important for people to compete in some way, and so if they have that drive and that ambition, I ended up competing in some CrossFit competitions. That's where I ended up channeling my competition, or competitive edge. But you can do even Spartan races or Tough Mudders. Not to say there's always an alternative, and if you want to do bikini competitions, do it. But just know that there are definitely side effects of long-term eating under calorie. So caloric deficits, which is usually what people do to maintain that body image, can be very detrimental in longevity and long-term health. So I try to discourage it because it might work for a couple months or for a couple years, but it actually can backfire 4 or 5 years down the road.
What does that look like?
Well, a big thing of it is adrenal health and cortisol health.
Okay.
And so high stress, high demand is one piece. And so that ties into the hormones and hormone health. But the biggest issue I see is when people do too low fat for too long. Fat and cholesterol actually make our hormones. And people don't really realize that. But long-term basically deficiencies in things like egg yolks or in things like saturated fat coming from coconut oil or well-sourced grass-fed beef. If we are deficient in those for long term, we start to see issues with our hair loss, with our memory is one of the biggest things that I see, and also just our hormones. So our just overall vitality, like feeling really energized and motivated, and also body composition changes become a lot harder to get results with.
Yeah, that's well, and I know that everyone, right? The labels came out back in. I feel like it was the late '90s, early 2000s. Fat free, low fat. That was a big one for everyone, right? And while yes, you don't want bad fats and bad sugars, good fats are really helpful and an important part of your diet.
Well, and it's interesting because bad fats, nobody knows what that means anymore. So I think that's the biggest thing is like good fats, bad fats, because some people might say bad fats are grass-fed beef, but I think that's a fantastic fat because it's saturated fat. And as much as saturated fat gets a bad rap, it's the only stable fat that we cook with. Coconut oil and saturated fats from animals, they stay their same shape when you put them at high temperature. So unlike olive oil, which people think is a good fat and a safe fat, if you have olive oil at too high of a temperature, it oxidizes. And then it's different in your body than it would be if it wasn't oxidized. So I think it's just the explanation of, regardless of your beliefs in nutrition, a lot of times our beliefs are, based on really poorly studied things that happened years and years ago that people latched onto, media latched onto, and now we have these stigmas of eating fat makes you fat, when in turn eating good fats can make you live a very long time and a very healthy life, and can also help you lose weight if you use it correctly. So I love the conversation. All my online programs are high fat based, and so I really encourage not necessarily the ketogenic diet, but really appreciating that fats can fuel you and nourish you, and they can get rid of that you have to eat every 3 hours stigma that we have in our head. So sometimes breakfast isn't the most important meal of the day. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's okay to skip it, and you can become very fat adapted, and your brain actually benefits from it in long term. There's even studies coming out now about reversing and preventing Alzheimer's with high fat diets. So there's really powerful ways to utilize fat, but only if we cut sugar and carbohydrates with it. And so I think that's the biggest kind of conversation to have. Like, yes, I love bacon coming from a healthy pig from a farm that's up north, and I get all my meat from well-sourced, local farms, because that's important. But if I pair bacon with potatoes and rice, or I pair grass-fed beef with rice and a sugar cookie at the end of the day, those are when things can get crossed over and we start seeing the results that we don't want.
You're really taking out my favorite foods here. What do you think about the food pyramid, right? So they changed it a couple of years ago from the carbs at the bottom, right? And now it's this long ways, if you will. Any thoughts on
I have
how
lots
that?
of thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I didn't. Man, we're getting into this. I think the base of any food pyramid should be vegetables. Everybody should be a plant-based diet, regardless of if you eat meat or not. I think it's the most underrated food group that nobody gets enough of. And the way that we farm and the way that we go through soil and plants, we get less and less minerals per plant than we ever have before. So a carrot today is different than a carrot 20 years ago. And so we have to even maximize more so the vegetables that we eat to get the same benefits that we used to get from them. And so I think that's so important, is B vitamins, nutrients. Our body runs on nutrients. And so we think of macronutrients, which are carbs and proteins and fats. And those are the big ones that everyone talks about. But if we don't have our micronutrients, we're never going to feel healthy. We're never going to have energy. And we can actually prevent sugar cravings by getting more micronutrients. And so first and foremost, everybody should eat vegetables. We can go on the tangent of breads and grains if you want. I just think that they're cheap and they're easy and they don't have nutrient density. So if you compare vegetables or even liver, as gross as that sounds, with a loaf of bread, calorie for calorie, there's no question. nutrient density is what you should look at. So regardless of your food dogma, if you just take something, nutritional facts, and you break down all the micronutrients in that, you're going to start realizing that bread sources, pastas, grains, rice, carbohydrates that are just refined or sometimes unrefined, never have the bang for the buck. And I care so much more about the nutrient density in my calories than I do about the calories themselves.
It's interesting. One time, not too long ago, I saw an article and it said that if society here in America was actually eating the proper amount of vegetables that they should, we would within our grocery stores really only be able to feed about 25% of the population. So that means that so many of our choices are towards the breads and the pastas and the fast and easy. And so the demand then isn't there for the vegetables as it should be. But if it were in balance, we would actually have a huge fruit and vegetable shortage here within the United States.
That is fascinating and sad.
It is sad, especially when you tie in the food waste. I mean, 40% of food is wasted and thrown away, especially vegetables. And so, the people that have access to it, which is honestly the hardest part for people, is access to fresh, even frozen, I'm fine with. Frozen organic it lasts forever and it's picked at its prime, but even access to that is just, it's sad because when we do have access to it, we throw away 40% of it. Wow. So, yes, it's a big conversation that needs to be had. And
well, let's have that conversation.
I'm rethinking lunch right now.
Yes,
I know.
Right, exactly. Well, and I also read a couple years ago that at least half your plate should be vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree with you. And I feel like people don't realize how many carbs are in vegetables too, right? The cauliflower trend, the cauliflower nachos and the pizza and things like that, to make it more appetizing, right, for people like me who don't necessarily care for those vegetables.
Yeah, and I think carbs coming from vegetables are totally acceptable. Yeah. I never count carbs if it's something that's coming from the earth. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So the ones I count are the ones that are added. So the challenges I run, all you have to do is pick up the food and read your ingredients, and not even the nutrition facts, but the actual ingredients. And if there's added sugar, and it's usually ending in OSE, so fructose or glucose, or brown rice syrup is another one, those can all be the things that we avoid, and just make simple changes to start eliminating extra sugars in our diet, because it comes up more than we realize.
I had a gym teacher in 6th grade who once said, if you can't read all of the ingredients on the label, you probably shouldn't eat it. And that was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got. Yeah. Well, it's not quite as, large, making sure that you're not eating too much sugar and things like, because I can read glucose just fine. Right? I know how to pronounce that.
But it is smart, because you just don't want all those preservatives in our food. I think they have long-term costly repercussions that we don't realize quite yet, and we will in years to come.
Yes, and we've been one of the most obese countries for 10 years now, right? Yeah. So I would imagine there's a little bit of motivation there to try to get your word out, right?
Yeah, and I think it's although I love fitness and I love getting people to move, 80% of everybody's body composition is the food they put on their plate. And so that's the thing I'm the most passionate about, is the conversations of whether it's meat and finding out sources of meat, or what meat and protein is good for the body and not good for the body, or whether it's, good fats, bad fats, what is actually good fats, bad fats. That's the conversation I think it's important to have. So, because that's when changes happen. That's when people start to see their whole world change around.
So your clientele, right? So you have your online gym nutrition
challenges.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So how is that for you? Because I've always been under the mentality, if I have a personal trainer, it's got to be at a gym, right? So
how's it work?
Yeah.
Well, the big thing is, and I love training people one-on-one, and I do some nutritional therapy consults in person. Okay. And I am opening a gym in Denver, so that's coming soon, which I'm very excited about. Yay. But the biggest thing is, if it's nutrition, and this is the thing I saw over and over with my clients, I would see them 1 or 2 times a week. But then they had how many hours without me, and those are the hours that counted. So I work on habit building and changing little things, whether it's the amount of water that they drink, or the amount of times they pick up ingredients and read and trying to get the extra sugar out of their diet, or the amount that they're drinking alcohol. So little things that can help with their habits is what promotes long-term change. So I actually prefer being online because I'm more accessible. And if they're struggling, we have Facebook communities, we have support groups where they can work with each other. They have buddies that they can kind of rely on each other to make those habits not as intimidating and not as scary, because I think so many times when people want to make a change, they go all in. And then if they don't stick with that all in, so say they're like, okay, I'm going to wake up every day at 5 a.m. and do my workout. And 4 days in, they're like, I'm freaking exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's all over. I'm not
Yeah.
doing it anymore, because they made way too big of a commitment way too soon.
Yeah.
So instead, it's like, let's just track our steps. Let's just track how many times we can get 10 minutes of movement in, or how many times I can take the stairs instead of the elevator. And those little changes are so much more impactful because they actually stick long term, versus those 4 days where you were really good, but then those 4 weeks that took you 4 weeks to get back into, okay, I'm ready to make another change.
Awesome. That's it. Yes, it's the small changes, and that's something that you tend to see over and over again, but it's adding those up is what is going to make the big change in your life.
Yeah.
And do you have a success story you'd like to share with one?
Oh my gosh, I have like 500. I
Yeah.
go to my website and I have a lot of people. I mean, the biggest successes for me is the ones that I see that it really was them coming into me. They wanted to lose weight. That was their prime motivation, which I respect, because we've all been there. We want to see changes in our body composition. But when they start to see the internal changes that I was talking about, how it's mentally, the way they look at themselves in the mirror, that's the powerful transformation that I want to see, where they start to take control. And my goal is to not just empower them to change, it's to empower themselves to empower the change. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know if I said that right, but like,
Yes.
I don't want to be always their coach, because if I'm always their coach, then I didn't give them the tools to do it on their own. And so that's my goal with every client that I see. And, you know, I have so many testimonials of just, I got rid of my sugar addiction and I saw weight loss, or the big ones where I feel so strong and I can look in the mirror and I can pick up my kids and I can feel amazing without back pain and without any issues, and walk in confidently. I'm working on a skin project right now to help people with any acne issues, and the best testimonial I just got this week was I had to get my makeup done, and I was okay with someone for the first time in 10 years touching my face. And so things like that, where it's like, wow, like this person radically had her life changed because she said, inside, I'm going to take the tools and change my body from the inside out. And it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of questioning and a lot of curiosity. And I can't create that. They have to create that. But when they do, it'll change their life forever.
That is fascinating, and I love that. And somebody, I just don't like to be touched anyway. But I can appreciate that, somebody overcoming that, right? 10 years it took for them to be able to feel comfortable with somebody touching their face. So Emily, real quick before we go to break, tell me where I can find your website, and exactly, can you give us any details on the gym that's coming?
Yeah, of course. So emilyschromm.com, EMILYSCHROMM. I have every single thing that I do on the homepage, so it's a lot, but the backpacks and the tees and my podcast and Platform Strength, the gym that's opening in Rhino, right in Denver, and it's a strength and conditioning hybrid gym, 24/7 access, so you can come take classes or you can come do your own thing, and we're just getting people strong, but in a way that makes sense for them. So if they want to just get strong and learn how to lift a barbell, or if they want to get really, really fit and run up a 14er really quickly, they can do that too. So lots of ways to help people train, and I'm excited to open it soon.
That is exciting. We are going to be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. In the meantime, like and subscribe our YouTube page and check out emilyschromm.com. We'll be right back.